The first principle is that while we believe not-for-profit should be different and it should be better, it should never mean we're not as efficient. We need to be every bit as efficient as any other company out there. And in fact, we should be because we don't have to produce quarterly results like if you're a public company, you do.
Right.
So we arguably should be able to make better long-term decisions. So that's number one. Number two is we want to operate always as a system with no unnecessary variation in waste. And of course we learned this from Brent James and others in the clinical programs where they'd identify the best practice and then drive out the unnecessary waste. So we want to do that across our organization, whether it's revenue cycle, supply chain, we want to operate as a system. Number three, we want to invest in process improvement and research and development.
Okay.
Now in process improvement, if you think about that, you go back about 11 or 12 years right after I started, we made a significant investment in process improvement in our supply chain organization.
Yeah, right.
And of course that's produced great outcomes for us over this time.
Yeah.
Second, revenue cycle, we did the same thing about a year or two later. Now we're investing, as you know, heavily in research and development, process improvement around shared accountability. The fourth principle is following best practices.
Okay.
And those best practices, historically have been healthcare best practices.
But clinical best practices.
Clinical best practices,
okay.
Right. But what we've done the last 10 years said, we need to follow best practices in every part of our operation. So if the clinicians can identify a best practice, build a system around it, do it the same way every time, we should be able to do that in finance, operations, communications, and everything else we do. And the fifth, definitely not the least important, probably the most important principle is if you ever have a doubt or you're faced with a decision, always do the right thing. If you do the right thing with more than a short-term view, it will be the best business decision. So those are really the 5 principles that we try to follow, and I think it's what makes us really a great organization.